I used to really struggle with consistency and discipline. It was something that ever since I was young is a long time ago, I thought my failures meant I just wasn't working hard enough. And I thought that I needed more willpower, more dedication, more discipline, more structure, more rules. And I'm not talking about just with my body, like training and changing a physique and losing weight, gaining weight, whatever. I'm just talking about life in general. And over time, I could actually say that now, over time, because I'm 52, I could look back and realize I see that my struggles weren't about motivation at all. Instead, they were really more about internal wiring and patterns that kind of kept me in survival mode, a lack of safety, what we now call a dysregulated nervous system in a way. And once I started to understand that, I really began to understand myself and I was able to understand my clients. And so, and then once I understood that for my own goals, I was able to then help other women kind of see past, what they saw right in front of their face. Because a lot of times we think that, like, I just have to work harder. I need to, have more accountability. Maybe I need to have, more structure or a better plan. And this showed up in many areas of my life, not just in training. So, well, I'm Jennifer Mary Elizabeth. I am a master's level coach. I have a graduate degree, master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. I am also a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I'm a personal trainer, and I own a studio called Think Holistic Fitness, and it is for women who weight train. And I've owned this studio for over 12 years. I've worked in fitness for well over 15 years. And looking back at all of the ways I've worked with people, I started to see this one common denominator. And through years of working, I've worked with over 1,000 women, help them reconnect with their strength and help them learn how to lift weights and, do all of those things. Those are a lot of things on the surface. But what I began to see was a very deeper level transformation. And I experienced that with myself through strength training. And I also started seeing women go through the same thing. And I had the honor and privilege of being able to walk and beside them as they went through this journey. So I'm creating this channel really to make free content for women because, we have our studio here and we work with about 200 women a month, pretty much age 35 to 70. And, through that time period, helping women just feel better about themselves, I started to work with them on a deeper level. So this channel isn't just about workouts and losing weight or changing your physique. It's more about what happens when strength training becomes a tool for healing and how we use it to rebuild ourselves and who we are from the inside out and from the bottom up and from, a place within that is on a much deeper level, a much more transformational change. So this is what I wanted to talk about in this video and, a little bit of my story. So I didn't grow up athletic. I was told when I was a little kid, I was told I was lazy. It's funny how we're given labels as children, but that's another topic for another day. I never saw myself as fit. This was a long time ago. Again, I'm talking years. Okay, so I'm 52, right? And this was, in my teens, in my 20s. Yeah, I did not see myself anywhere of what I see myself today. I grew up as an adult child of an alcoholic. I grew up with a lot of dysfunction in my family, and I mean no disrespect to my family. My parents loved me. I know they did, and, rest their souls, they are not with us anymore. They had passed away, and I have a brother somewhere, and, growing up in that environment and all the fun stuff that comes along with alcoholic home, a lot of codependency, a lot of, swings in emotions, lack of stability. I learned early on how to stay very alert, very vigilant, how to take care of everybody else's needs and to perform or mask to make everybody else feel okay around me. And probably like many women who grew up that way, they probably carried those same survival skills into adulthood, just as I did. And how does this tie into weight training? Well, I'll get to that, right? Because this is an important piece. And today, we talk about weight training for menopausal women and why we have to get so strong and why we have to do these things for our bones and why we have to do these things to lose weight. And I understand all of that and I validate the need for that because it is important, okay? But strength training played a very different role for me, and it has for some of my clients, many of my clients, as well as they developed a more intimate relationship with training and with their body. So, when you grow up and you have, especially kind of, I was diagnosed at some point with CPTSD. I mean, now I have a mental health background, right? But before this, I began to understand, how my life evolved. I married partners who were not good for me, relationships that were very toxic and sometimes abusive. And, because I grew up in chaos felt familiar. Calm felt wrong, which was very strange. Calm was boring. And it's funny now, today, 52, I live a very boring life and I love it, right? I love my rituals and routines. I love my consistency and discipline, but it does not come from a place of rules and regulations. And this is something that I've noticed when women come into the studio and they want to change their body and they want the rules and they want the solution and they want the plan and they want all of these things. But over time, they begin to see that there is something different there that can elicit the change. And I learned from my own experience, especially through my years, my years giving myself to people that probably did not deserve having my time. I hate to say that, it sounds a little arrogant. I don't mean it that way. But I gave a lot of time to people. I gave myself away. I used to say I gave myself away piece by piece in order to keep the peace. And every failed relationship, I knew I needed to put myself back together. And that was a really hard climb. And that's where strength training came in. So I started strength training in my 20s. This was far before Instagram showed women strength training and everybody doing hip thrusts and deadlifts and, their PRs and pull-ups and, all of this, which is great. It's phenomenal. It really is. But I started strength training for a very different reason because it was the one place that I felt calm in my body. I had a lot of social anxiety, which is funny that here I am on YouTube now, right? I had a lot of social anxiety and it was really awkward for me to be in environments that were a lot of people around. And it wasn't that I necessarily felt embarrassed about who I was. I would feel often like I didn't fit there. I remember going to my first group fitness class ever. It was when I lived in New York and I went to I don't know if it was Bally's or something like that. And I took a step aerobic class and I remember being in the very back row, right? Because I was just I felt uncoordinated. I felt like I had to focus so hard just to keep up. And, and that was a big reach for me to go. And I remember the reason why I went, because I remember sitting at a beach in Long Island and I was not athletic, like I said, I was not. And my body was changing. I was in my 20s and I was like, gosh, and I sat at a beach and I looked at this girl sitting next to me, a little bit down, and she just her legs looked so much different than mine. Mine were kind of flabby. and hers were just like toned. And I was like, huh. I was like, well, I'm not growing taller anymore. I seem to be growing this way. And I was never really tremendously overweight. I was maybe then a size 8. Today, I'm a size 2, right? But not from dieting. And I didn't go into strength training necessarily because something was, I felt the need to change my body, but I knew I had to do something. I knew I had to be a little more active. And as I did those group fitness classes, and I just felt so awkward, as like it didn't make me want to go back because I was just so uncomfortable. So I went and I started doing strength training on machines, right? And this was a long time ago. And there's a lot more story behind how I became so involved in strength training, but strength training was the first place that I felt calm. And I didn't know it then, what strength training was doing for me. I can explain it now in clinical language, what strength training did for me. I can explain now that it helped me regulate. I can explain now that it helped me shift from the sympathetic side of my nervous system into the parasympathetic side of my nervous system. I can put that into words now and, understanding. But from that point, strength training became such a core place for me that while my life was in chaos all around me, it was the one thing that I went back to consistently, because it helped me ground. And that got me through 2 very difficult divorces. That got me through, some very personal moments that brought me to my knees. It was the thing that I was able to go back to and say, I did this. If I could do this, I could do the next thing I need to do. And I never really had a trainer, and I'll explain that in another video, and I'll explain why biomechanics became really important to me, because I had a lot of physical pain then, for a couple different reasons. One being a car accident from years ago that whoever we all hear like, oh, a car accident is going to give you neck pain. Yeah, it did. It also ended my prior career, but I'll save that for another video. And the other thing was, after learning to strength train, yes, and then it became my career through an interesting avenue. This was in my 30s, right? So I'm still talking about 20 years ago. Gosh, I can't believe how I aged myself. I love little Lego flowers. I have so many of them. But I love the little flowers. I'm just going to show you. I have a few here. These, I like making them, and I make bouquets out of them. And what's best about these is I don't have to water them because I forget. But okay, back to my story. So, then I threw myself into work, and that's how I started building Think Holistic Fitness. And building Think Holistic Fitness then healed me in a different way. And because I got to walk alongside a lot of amazing women and seeing their journey and seeing the things that they came in and struggled with, and, feeling broken. They weren't broken. They felt broken, but they weren't. And watching how strength training put them together too, just as it helped me put myself back together piece by piece after having myself pretty much torn apart, right? Lifting was my therapy, and it became therapy for our clients too. It taught me how to feel again. It taught me how to breathe. It taught me how to stand in my strength and to realize that I was strong in many different ways. And it showed me how to go through hard things, grief, fear, rebuilding, and most importantly, what this did for me is it helped me go through, like what I talked about, those very difficult times I went through. It helped me come out stronger instead of broken. And it helped me come out, instead of being defeated, I came out wiser. And it wasn't just strength training, but strength training helped put me in another part of my mind that I was able to grow. And there is science behind this. There is science behind neuroplasticity of the mind and how that is increased through strength training. So, and that journey became the foundation of what I now teach. So I teach women who were never athletic. I teach them how to move biomechanically really well so they can do things that they never thought they could. I get so much pleasure out of seeing women who were never athletic, like I was never athletic. And, you know, to watch them come in and learn how to move. And then, you know, in 6 months, they're doing things like, oh my gosh, I never thought I would be able to, whatever it may be, do a hip thrust at over 100 pounds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but to a person who never did things like this because they had a narrative maybe of themselves that like, I don't do things like this, I don't lift weights, or I don't do athletic things, or I'm not strong. You know, to hear women come and say like, oh my gosh, I can walk up the stairs now without knee pain. Or to hear a woman say, I came in here hoping to just learn how to lift weights, and now I'm a woman squatting 180 pounds, like in their 50s or 60s. And it was years in the game, but the time they got to this point, of course, and I have videos in this channel pointing to that. I'm not going to go and, you know, put a bunch of B-roll in this video and, you know, explain that. I'll link other stuff. So, but also too, you know, helping women understand why they want to come in and change their body so much. What part is driving them? Is it because they had a narrative put on them from years ago? Were they told maybe when they were younger that their bodies were not perfect? Or is this something coming from them that they truly want? Those are two very different things. And a lot of times when we go into an attempt to change our body, it comes from a certain place sometimes that is, I don't want to say it's wrong. This is not true. This is just my opinion, right? But when we face it through a bunch of rules and it comes from a negative place within us saying that, oh, my body's not good enough, or I was, you know, I'm overweight, or I need to look better in my clothes. And a lot of times some women, they start out with those goals. And as they start to get stronger and they start to kind of dig a little deeper as to what they really want. And when they see as time goes on and how much stronger they get, they start to see that they value the strength part that has changed on an internal level, not just how much they can move, but the reasons why they came in wanting to change their body then become very different over time. And that's based in your nervous system, right? That's based in your sense of self. That is based in your story and how you see yourself. That's based in your narrative. And that is based in your personal agency. And seeing women change that part, to me, is sacred ground. And I will never take that for granted, ever. So I'm sure the clients in my studio who may hear this video at some point, I just want you to know that is sacred ground. So I teach women how to change and choose their narrative instead of living out other people's expectations of them. And I teach them to rebuild their self-trust, their capacity and resilience for life, and how to handle hard times, because hard times will come. We always have a new season. Fall will come, winter will come, spring will come, summer will come. We will face hard times. It's just part of life, and there's nothing wrong with that. But learning how to go through them and to come out above is, to me, the most rewarding part of life. That is what strength training has taught me over time, along with many other valuable lessons. So I'm going to say if you are a woman over 40, even if you're under 40, right? But a woman who's over 40 who is tired of starting over and tired of feeling disconnected and tired of giving pieces of yourself away just to keep the peace, this channel is for you. I'm going to post videos on how to regulate your body, how to make a decision to change your body from the right place within you, not because society tells you to, not because maybe you feel that your husband doesn't find you attractive or your spouse doesn't find you attractive, or not for those external reasons, not because you think you're getting older. I'm getting older. We're all getting older. But that decision to change comes from a very different place. And when it comes from that place that is yours, you will find it much easier to stick to the quote unquote rules and rituals and routines, okay, when it's coming from a place in your nervous system that is a sense of safety. Because when it's coming from a place that you feel threatened, it is going to be really hard to hang on to those rules. And you will likely fail many times and circle the drain. And then you'll beat yourself up for not being able to stick with it. And then maybe somebody's going to tell you at some point, well, if you really wanted it, you would do it. I guess it's just not a priority for you. And I would say that is the most harmful thing anybody could say, because I've wanted change for a long time. And it wasn't that I wasn't working hard enough. It was that I was literally swimming upstream and I couldn't get myself to align. Once I got myself to align internally, and I got myself to feel safe, and a sense of safety, and a sense of trust in myself, and a sense of confidence in myself, and once I had clarity, once I can give myself self-compassion, then things started to change. And it built a kind of resilience, right? And that type of resilience will help you move through life grounded and stronger. So for those of you that may have been down what I call a toxic road of diet and fitness, I hope that you can subscribe here, stay curious, and hear some of what I will put up so you can rebuild your body, your mind, your spirit, inside out. Because very often, long-lasting change comes from the inside, and it took me a long time to learn that. So I'll share more here in this channel. You'll see some things about moving well, biomechanically well. You'll see things about movement. You'll see things about how to understand how you tick, right? What makes you tick, because that's really important too. And I'll share how I learned to do this. And then, yes, I ended up, getting a degree in this to help people clinically. So I'm happy you're here, and I hope you stay. Thanks. Bye.